So I've always been pretty reluctant to talk about compensation on this channel because these numbers can vary so widely from company to company and market to market, but I also know that pay is a really important part of work, and if I were in your shoes watching this channel, I would want to know, how much does a real estate analyst actually get paid? And while the easy cop-out answer is it depends, I am personally grateful for all the people who didn't give me this answer when I was first coming up in the industry, and the people that gave me the real numbers that I could expect based on what I was looking to do. And even though these figures can vary a lot based on your geographic market, any internship experience you have, and the company you're ultimately going to join, in this video, I wanted to give you guys a better idea of what you might expect from an overall pay perspective in your first full-time analyst role within the commercial real estate industry. So with all of that said, let's jump right in and talk through commercial real estate compensation figures for some of the most popular parts of the industry and what you might expect to earn based on the jobs you're targeting now. Now, before we get started, it's important to note that this information is based on my personal experience, the experience of my peers in the industry, and probably most importantly, the experiences of Break Into CRE Academy members who have recently gone through this process or are going through this process right now. Sites like Glassdoor and Salary.com tend to give pretty vague information when it comes to real estate analyst salaries, and these sites are also usually way off the mark when it comes to bonuses and variable compensation. And while the well-known CEL and Associates Annual Compensation Survey is a great resource for real estate professionals, I often find that in this report, some of these figures can tend to be a little bit on the high end, especially for people not located in major markets or for people in their very first job in the business. And since I've personally spent about 8 years working at 6 different companies in the real estate industry across private equity, brokerage, and lending roles, and I've also been able to see firsthand the offers that Break Into CRE Academy members are seeing right now at all different kinds of shops in various different roles across the industry, I wanted to share the most real-time, in-the-trenches data that I could that people like you are seeing right now when going through this process. So with that all out of the way, let's jump into this and walk through what you can actually expect to make as a first-year analyst in the commercial real estate industry, starting with the lowest and moving to the highest paying roles. So to start off this list on the low end of the spectrum, some of the lowest paid entry-level analyst positions in the industry tend to be underwriting or general real estate analyst roles on the debt side of the business, specifically roles at a traditional bank, government-backed agency lender, or insurance company. Analyst positions at these types of firms tend to be some of the most stable and secure jobs in all of commercial real estate, but with that lack of risk also generally comes a lack of significant upside, and this is often the case for these roles. In general, base salaries for entry-level analysts in these types of positions will usually range from about $65,000 per year to about $80,000 per year, and bonuses usually come in at about 10 to 15% of that base salary, bringing all-in compensation numbers to around $70,000 to $90,000 per year. And where you are going to fall in this range is going to depend on the company you're working for, the city you're working in, and your level of experience going into the role, but what tends to have the biggest impact on where you fall in this range is how client-facing your role actually is. If you're working on a team that's directly responsible for sourcing new loans, and you are the one that's directly supporting the highest producers within the company, you're very likely going to see numbers that are on the higher end of this range, and bonus figures that might even exceed this 10 to 15% number. But if you're working in more of a back office role that's focused almost exclusively on underwriting and essentially providing a yes or no approval answer to that front office team, in this case, you're very likely going to see both base salary and bonus figures that are on the low end of this range. As you'll see as a general theme throughout this entire video, the most highly compensated roles in commercial real estate are the ones which have the most involvement in the firm's revenue generating activities, and in these types of positions, the closer you can get to actual business development actions that make the company money, the more money that you are likely to make. Now, coming in at number 3 on this list is a principal or ownership side position where you're working at a company that invests in and manages commercial real estate deals, and this is an asset management analyst or a portfolio management analyst. Asset management and portfolio management analysts spend most of their days analyzing an existing portfolio of properties, helping the team make leasing decisions, developing plans for capital accounts, and even trying to determine the optimal sale timing for properties in the portfolio. And similar to many of the lending roles we just talked about, since these types of positions are focused on existing assets within a portfolio, these tend to be some of the safest analyst jobs in the industry, especially when economic downturns hit, but these also tend to be roles that generally don't lead directly to additional revenue for the firm, which can make the pay for these positions often fall on the low end of the spectrum. For newly minted asset management and portfolio management analysts taking on an entry-level position, base salaries will usually come in at somewhere between about $70,000 and $85,000 per year, with bonuses usually set at about 10% to 15% of that base salary, bringing all-in compensation figures here somewhere between about $75,000 and $100,000 per year. And again, where you fall on this spectrum is going to depend a lot on how closely your day-to-day responsibilities impact revenue generation for the company and whether or not your work actually has an impact on things like leasing decisions, construction management, or capital raising for the firm. Now from here, let's move on to the second highest paying analyst job, and this is another one on the principal or ownership side of the business, and this is an acquisitions analyst role. Now, salary figures for entry-level acquisitions analysts tend to vary a lot, but in my experience, base pay will usually fall somewhere between about $80,000 and $100,000 per year, with bonus levels usually coming in at about 15 to 30% of that base salary number, putting all-in compensation levels for most entry-level acquisitions analysts usually between about $90,000 and $130,000 per year. And as I mentioned throughout this video, the reason why this tends to be one of the highest paying analyst positions in the business is because acquiring new properties is a direct revenue generating activity for real estate investment and private equity firms, which means the more deals you work on that close, the more fee income the company is able to generate, both when the property is acquired and as the property is managed and ultimately sold in the future. Acquisitions roles also tend to require some of the highest levels of real estate finance knowledge at the analyst level, since these positions will often require you to work on extremely advanced topics like building pro forma models from scratch, modeling complex equity waterfall structures, and ultimately pitching deals to investors through offering materials that you put together. And the bigger the deals you work on, the higher your pay is generally going to be in these types of roles, meaning that an acquisitions analyst that works on $500 million of closed deals each year is usually going to be paid significantly more than an acquisitions analyst that works on only $50 million of closed deals each year. Acquisitions analyst positions also generally lead into some of the highest paying, more senior roles in the industry, especially as you start to participate in some of the fees you bring in for sourcing deals and the promoted interest on deals you've acquired that end up being sold for a profit. And finally, the number one highest paying entry-level analyst role on this list isn't on the principal side or in lending, but instead a real estate analyst role in brokerage within an investment sales, debt and equity placement, or capital markets team. And like most positions in brokerage, these types of roles are generally going to have the most variable compensation numbers of any analyst position on this list, but in exchange for taking on the risk of low pay in down years, there's also a huge amount of potential upside for analysts if your team performs well. Brokerage analyst positions actually often offer significantly lower base salaries than the other analyst positions on this list, usually coming in at anywhere from about $55,000 to $70,000 per year. However, bonuses and commission sharing are really how these analysts make their money, with variable compensation figures often amounting to 50 to 100% or more of an analyst's base pay. It's not uncommon for analysts with only 2 to 3 years of experience on top producing brokerage teams to be making close to or even over $200,000 per year. And while this might seem like a lot of money for someone just a few years out of college, this is really just training for the big leagues with the top producers at major brokerage firms like CBRE, JLL, Cushman & Wakefield, and Eastdil Secured that initially started out at the analyst level, often making 7 figures per year or more in major gateway markets. I've said this on the channel before, but ultimately your first job in the real estate industry should really be evaluated based on what you think you'll learn in that specific role, and ideally, pay won't be your primary focus when it comes time to go through this process. However, I also know that money is a very real thing, and how much you're likely to make in each part of the industry usually does have a direct impact on the roles you do decide to target and what parts of the business that you want to focus on most. Now, obviously, whether or not an offer falls on the high or low end of these ranges, or even within these ranges at all, is going to depend on the geographic market you're located in, the company you're working for, and any experience you're bringing into the role that you're stepping into. But I hope this was helpful in giving you some context around some common pay levels in the industry and what you might be able to expect when looking for your first commercial real estate analyst role. And if you are going through the job search process right now and want to tighten up your resume and cover letters to land more interviews, or you just want to make sure that your technical skill sets are where they need to be to ace an Excel interview exam at a top commercial real estate shop, make sure to check out our all-in-one membership training platform, Break Into CRE Academy. A membership to the Academy will give you instant access to over 120 hours of video training on real estate financial modeling and analysis. You'll get access to hundreds of practice Excel interview exam questions, sample acquisition case studies, our entire library of pre-built acquisition, development, and waterfall models for multifamily, office, retail, and industrial properties, and you'll also have access to private one-on-one email-based career coaching if you're looking to break into a top real estate private equity, brokerage, or lending shop and want some additional personalized feedback along the way. And if you like this video and want to see more content on this channel on commercial real estate pay and compensation structures, make sure to hit the like button and let me know. And if you're up for sharing, let me know in the comments below the kinds of numbers that you are seeing in your market for entry-level analyst roles. As always, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you found this helpful. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to see more videos like this every single week, and I'll see you in the next video.